Welcome back to another Star Minigaming YouTube video, and in this video I am briefly going over the Age of Sigmar Death Grand Alliance book. First off, the immediate reaction to it is that the price is wonderful. It's cheap, it's not necessary, in the sense that you don't have to buy it like just about any of these other Age of Sigmar books if you don't want it. All the War Scrolls are provided for free via either PDF on GW's website or via the app that you can have on your mobile phone. But with that being said, about 15 bucks in the neighborhood of that for this book is pretty reasonable. It is 88 pages in all, including the main rules at the very back. GW is continuing their trend excuse me, of placing that little basically two-page rule pamphlet at the back of every one of their books. It is at the back of Balance of Power, the Grand Alliance Death, and it just is another way that GW is lowering the barrier of entry into the Age of Sigmar. And clearly that's a good thing. It allows for more people to get into the game, more people to learn about the game, and just helps us as the player base continue to grow. But with that being said, let's real briefly talk about what all is in here. So in here, first off, is a lot of nice artwork. They had a lot of fun either with computer animation or with fog machines, or I'm not entirely sure. I would assume animation. Let's see if I can actually get it in shot. There we go. Where you can see the, kind of fog mist effect. But basically we have a table of contents which, breaks down the Death faction into all the categories that you have probably already seen if you have the app, of Death Lords, Soul Blight, Death Mages, Dead Walkers, Death Rattle, Flesh Eater Courts, Beasts of the Grave, Night Haunts, and then of course the main rules. And I'm not going to go into extreme detail with every single one of these. It's just nice. It gives you, a little how to use this book, War Scroll battalions, and then, War Scrolls, telling you a little bit more about what those are, hints and tips. Just kind of giving you little bits of information on how to use them within game. In each section, there's a nice little bit of fluff initially before you get into the section. So like Death Lords, Bone or Death Rattle and all that jazz, Soul Blight. All of it, is nice. It's got pretty good artwork to it. I mean, you'd expect that from a GW book. Honestly, the only thing I don't like about it is that it is so broken up, right? I really hate that there's 9 categories for the units. So, while I'm trying to learn how to use this book and, in my games, and clearly over time, it'll become easy enough. I'll be like, oh, okay, the, Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon is on page 31, but if I want just the Zombie Dragon by itself, I've got to go back here to page 75, and just things like that of like having to flip back and forward so much in this book. I'm pretty used to not having to do that with my rule books. I'm pretty used to everything being pretty well laid out, like for example in this Lord of the Rings book that I have here to compare, which has taken a little bit of a beating over the years. We have, for example, the Isengard section. And so we have, the profiles and information for Saruman and Lurtz and all the other various heroes. And then we get to the section where it says Warriors of Isengard, so we get to the generic troops. And then we kind of continue through that. And we continue through until we get to the very end where we have a nice kind of collective picture of a bunch of models from the faction. And then we go on to the next one, and it repeats. So, on the one hand, it'll be something I can learn in time and get kind of more accustomed to, but I don't like that. I think it's ridiculous that GW took the faction and shrunk the faction by removing the Tomb Kings, didn't bother to give us any new units in the process, and then decided to overcomplicate things by breaking it into 9 sub-factions when there's not enough units to justify that. Several of these factions have, around 2 to 3 models in them. For example, the Night Haunts have 4, the Black Coach, the Hex Wraith, the Banshee, and the Karen Wraith. And then some of these are even smaller. You know, the Beast of the Grave is literally just the Zombie Dragon and the Terrorgeist. And then we have the Vargulf, Crypt Horrors, Crypt Ghouls, and the Abhorrent Ghoul King to make up the... and the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist to make up, you know, the Flesh Eater Courts. And the only things really that... only thing really that is, unique to this book that you don't have for free otherwise is the Legion of Death, which is the one War Scroll battalion within the entire book. And you can get this for cheaper than the book in the app. So while I enjoy the fact that there's the little bits of fluff, and I enjoy the, the nice pictures that of both models and of, just kind of art, just drawn artwork in it. And I do like having a physical copy of the rules. That's something I'm accustomed to in all my games, 40K, Lord of the Rings, whatever. Even at the low price, that's something I kind of struggle with, is that you don't really get much for it. Again, it's cheap and they didn't really hide anything. But the fact that it's not even conveniently put together for use in game is, for me, a pretty big drawback. Yeah, but I guess, on the other hand, although it's not as well organized, it is an 88-page book for $15, and, GW prices typically go up, although we have seen a bit of a change of that as of late with these Start Collecting box sets, for example, and, when compared to the Lord of the Rings books that came out years ago, probably closer to 2012, not going to bother to flip through that, they were about 30. So you get about twice the book for about half the price. So, it's not all good, it's not all bad. And of course there is the picture that is designed to tease and, just taunt fans of Vlad like myself, who I want to make this very clear. I do believe that his death was perfect, that it completed his story arc, and that to bring the character back will probably cheapen the character. However, I didn't get to enjoy him for very long, so for purely selfish reasons, in the fact that my favorite character I was introduced to at the very beginning of my, time into Warhammer, and then was snatched from me, and basically in the same breath, Vlad. So for purely selfish reasons, I do, to a degree, hope he comes back. And here we have a picture of a vampire lord that looks, mysteriously like Vlad. He has the same, shoulder spike, the same armor, the similar sword. He has the same hair. His face is very similar to the model that I'm literally staring at on my desk right now. Clearly it doesn't have to be Vlad, but obviously he's the inspiration for this vampire lord that's over all these others. And there is a female vampire lord standing a little ways behind him that may or may not be, Isabella. She's dressed similar to how the model is always painted up. So, who knows? That could just be generic vampire 1 or 2, or they could be taunting those of us who somewhat hope Vlad comes back. But to finish, in summary, it's a good book in terms of for its value, especially when compared to 40K codexes or even the Balance of Power book, which is massive, dictionary for Age of Sigmar, for $60 less, roughly, US. But it's not designed well in the sense of an ease of use. The breakdown into sub-factions within the faction is annoying, and from a, in-game use, practical sense. But, if you're interested in the little bit more fluff, if you want the War Scroll Battalion, and if you want a physical copy, I'd say it's probably worth the $15 to pick up. But until next time, this is James, and happy gaming.